WVTC Radio Detroit. You can find us on Facebook, YouTube, our website, www.wvtcradio.com, or download our WVTC app from the Play Store for Android users and the App Store for iPhone users. Thank you for tuning to WVTC Radio Detroit and the Community Bell Show with your host, former Wayne County Commissioner, Edna Bell. Stay tuned for insightful information Detroiters will find valuable. Text a friend and tell them to watch with you for news you can use. And now, your host, Edna Bell.
Well, hello, everyone. It's Monday at 4 o'clock, so it must be the Community Bell Show. Good afternoon. I'm so glad to see everyone here. I'm so glad to be here with you. As a matter of fact, it's a sunny day in Detroit. We are blessed to be able to have all the wonderful things we have in Detroit, particularly our river. And most of you know we've got something big coming up. The Grand Prix is back in the city of Detroit on the city of Detroit streets, and that will be coming to us in the next few weeks. It's going to be a grand time. If you drive around downtown Detroit, you can see all of the things that are going up. You can see a big stand over Woodward Avenue that says Grand Prix Detroit, and then if you go on the Atwater Street down by the waterfront to the east of the Renaissance Center, you'll see where the grandstands are being put up. Um, it's going to be a grand time. So we're just excited that so many good things are happening in our city. I'm just excited to be here. We've got a very special guest today. It's the Honorable Sylvia Santana, our state senator. And Sylvia is in a wonderful role, a wonderful position. She happens to be the chair of the Health and Human Services Committee for the state of Michigan. They're getting ready to put together their budget and for the governor to sign. There's lots of good stuff in that budget, but she's going to talk to us about the process. Most people don't know how the budget gets put together, how the information gets there, where the money comes from, how it goes in, how you vote on it, all that good stuff. She's going to talk about that, all of that, and a lot of the things that are being recommended for that budget. But before I do that, let me shout out to mothers today. Yesterday was Mother's Day. It was a wonderful day. And, they talked about all the rain and the cold that was going to happen yesterday. But God said, no, we're not having that. It was a lovely day yesterday. It was an absolutely lovely, lovely day. So shout out to all the mothers for all you do, and all the mothers and would-be mothers and kind of sort of mothers, the fathers who are mothers. Shout out to all those people that do all the things to take care of our children, to make sure that they are just good people. There's a special one I want to do. It's a young man. His name is James Estes. James is a member of my church, New Prospect Missionary Baptist Church. He's the son of one of our ministers, the Reverend Craig Esther. James graduated on Saturday from Northern Illinois University. He is such a young man. And when I see these young people, I remember him when he was born. He was a little bitty thing. Well, oh my God, he's a big thing now. He's a football player, excellent football player. But not only that, he's a scholar. He graduated cum laude from his university. So congratulations to James Esther, for all you've done. We are proud of you. We look forward to all the things that you're going to do. We want him to be drafted to one of those pro teams and do all those good things, get some of those $1 million contracts. But on top of being a good young man, comes to church. He's always in Sunday school. And I'm just proud of him. So shout out. Should be. Yes, Sylvia Santana, where are you? You there? There you are, Sylvia. And
hi, good afternoon.
And you guys know that Sylvia has been on the show before and will be on the show lots more times, but she always has such good information for us. Welcome, Sylvia.
Oh, thank you, Edna, for having
Happy
me.
Mother's Day to you. Sylvia has 3 lovely young people, so she's a mother also, and the youngest one just had his first communion, I understand.
Oh, yes. I have little adults, I call them.
Yes. But
Yes,
they grow so fast. It's incredible how they get away from you. Last week, I had the pleasure of attending an event at Fellowship Chapel, the Midnight Golf Program. And it's a wonderful organization. And there were 252 young people who have been a part of that program over the last year. And you have to be a senior to be a part of it. They were receiving scholarships. Oh my God, they received so much money. I loved it. But they were there to receive the scholarships. The people who were giving the scholarships were there in person to give those scholarships out. And I belonged to a golf club, and we gave out 2 $1,500 scholarships at that event, and our scholarships go to young ladies. And so the 2 young ladies who applied happened to also be a part of the the Midnight Golf Program. And so we were excited to be a part of that program. It was incredible. I mean, the house was full of parents and well-wishers and people who had donated scholarship funds. And it was just a pleasure to watch those young people make the next step going off to college. But it was also a pleasure to watch them get all that money. When I tell you they got a lot of money, they got a lot of money. And I thought I knew about all the HBCUs, but there's some that I guess I didn't know about. One that's called Delaware State University. They gave out, I want to say, $252,000 in scholarships to those young people. Clafton University, I think it's in Virginia, they gave out $240,000 in scholarships, and the money was there, and I'm just pleased that those kids applied for it. So parents, have your kids apply for everything under the sun, please, because they're going to need all the money they can get their hands on. They are there. Just like the state needs all the money it can get its hands on to give to people, right, Sylvia?
Oh yes, COVID has been interesting. I think people see the ARPA dollars and the CARES Act dollars that we have been able to allocate, but then they see that we are in a very healthy financial position as a state. However, a lot of dollars have gone out the door. So I think where we are today will be a great indicator this Friday when we hear from the Consensus Revenue Estimating Conference on just how much sales revenue and tax dollars have actually come into our state since January. So that will be a key indicator of how much money you all are spending out there in Michigan.
And I think people really don't talk about where the money comes from that we get in the state, and the sales tax. I don't think they get it that tax goes to the state and it's given back to communities. So talk about that.
Yeah, so let me take a step back to just kind of talk about the budget process. In January, we have the January Consensus Revenue Estimating Conference where we are looking at projections of dollars that have been expended in the state or those dollars that will be spent in our state, and that will encompass our sales tax revenues, federal dollars that are passed through the state, and also our income tax. And those are all dollars that are reallocated and portioned back to the local governments through revenue sharing estimating conference as a percentage. Those dollars go back through our school aid fund for our schools to project their spending allotments for the year, as well as in other areas, whether it be our nonprofits that are supporting communities locally when it comes to our seniors, all the way to our infants. And definitely there's just a lot of different intricacies of government where those dollars are going back into our local municipalities to help support those needs that we have, like fixing the roads, of course.
Yes, our favorite subject. We want them fixed, but we don't want to see the orange barrels. So, can't have it both ways. So now that once that happens, in terms of we decide how much money we're going to get, what happens then?
So that decision gets made between good question. That decision gets made between our Senate fiscal analysts, our economists that help to support giving those projections from U of M as well as Michigan State, as well as Treasury and House Fiscal Agency and a state budget office will help to support how those projections might look for our state and where we have dollars. Now, that's just an estimate of what we receive. And so the governor will decide what her budget looks like based off of those dollars. And so she will present that budget to the House and the Senate. And then from there, we will take her budget and do an overview of it, as well as put our own spin on that budget based off the information that has been provided. And so now that we have gone through that process with subcommittees, so for example, my committee is the Department of Health and Human Service subcommittee, and our subcommittee encompasses not only Senate Fiscal Agency, which helps us to navigate how to craft a budget from the Senate standpoint, but also it incorporates other state senators who help to, in the department to help to support some type of structuring of a budget. So they will weigh in, stakeholders will weigh in as well. I'm just looking at the note here. We can hear. Okay. Stakeholders will weigh in as well. And then from there, we will come up with a budget that will be passed out of our subcommittee. And once that budget is passed out of our subcommittee, it will go to the full appropriations committee where everyone will vote on that budget to be passed out of the full approps committee. Once that happens, we have what we have this Friday coming up, which is our May Consensus Revenue Estimating Conference, where we are reviewing where we are as a state as far as our spending and our income tax potential revenues and any other revenues that are coming into the state. So we're looking at it from a quarterly standpoint to see how much money actually from the estimate that we provided in January are we actually seeing come in the state. And this is based off of sales tax revenue, income, and other revenues as well that we will see.
Okay. Now I think my mic is muted, so I want you to just go ahead and talk
Oh,
because I think I'm getting some horrible static. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can.
Okay, but you just go ahead and talk because something's going on with mine. So I'll
Okay.
just let you go.
That's true. Not a problem. So now that we're at a point, so now that we have passed our budget out of subcommittee, the Department of Health and Human Service budget, which is Senate Bill 190, which the Health and Human Service budget encompasses probably I would say 50% or 42%, if you want to be accurate, plus or minus a couple percentage points. It encompasses a large portion of our state budget. And the majority of those dollars that come through the Health and Human Service budget are designated for our local government. So you'll see a lot of dollars come from the federal level, go right into our local municipalities. But when you look at the comparison with our budget versus what the governor proposed, we are about $160 million under the governor's proposed budget. So what that means that she has proposed a budget of around $35 billion, $35.7 billion, and we've proposed a budget of around $35.4 billion. And so we are a little under the governor's recommendation. But when you look at our budget, the budget was based off of some of the things that we can agree on, but just maybe the numbers may not align as specifically to the governor's recommendation. So when you think about our direct care workers are those individuals who are on the front line of our nursing homes that are helping, loved ones in the home, just with assisted living care. Those individuals who are on the front lines of helping to support our communities. Obviously, the governor's recommendation incorporated an increase of $1.50 from the $2.35 that we allocated in our last fiscal budget. And so her budget recommended a significant portion of those dollars going right into direct care workers. And so what my logic was in the budget process is that our direct care workers, obviously, they deserve more than there's no dollar amount that could ever pay the amount that they are deserving of for the work that they do to help support our communities and support individuals in the community. And so one of the things that, obviously proposing a bump in their wages was definitely something that I think the House and Senate's executive office could all agree upon. However, one of the things that I recognize is that when we're looking at long-term budget changes, this particular budget item does not have a designated line item. So what I mean by that is that although we might do a bump in their wages today, it's not guaranteed for the next budget cycle. And so it's a false premise to add those dollar amounts to the budget and give them those wages. And then next year, they may not see that $4 increase or that $1.50 increase. So it's not something that is opposing, but it's more so about making sure that the direct care workers have a sustaining and long-term wage increase that's not predicated on a budget being passed at the state level. And so that's one of the things that I think we have to work on. But I did incorporate a 65-cent increase, which will get them to $3 to their wages, in addition to the wages that they're offered with their employers. But we also have the non-clinical workers that nobody ever takes into consideration. When COVID happened, those are the individuals who are cleaning the nursing home facilities and preparing the food and doing those things as well. So what I did in my budget was make sure that not only they were getting $3 additional, but also the direct care workers were getting $3 additional, but also making sure the non-clinical workers were getting $3 additional. So I think that and we've had some recommendations to increase them to $4, as a total amount. However, with that incorporation of that dollar amount, it would have taken away any other ability to do any other action items within this budget this particular cycle. So I thought to be a little conservative on the increase, but also making sure they're still getting to $3 wages increase in their budget. So that was one of the things that's a point of difference when it comes to conference time.
Okay.
Some of the other areas that we've been able to work on is making sure that through Medicaid, we can expand coverage for children with special health programs. This program is something that I think is really important, but not a lot of parents or people take advantage of. This is a program that would expand the eligibility for young adults between up to the age of 26 that have, maybe they have a very rare disease form, or they have a rare debilitating disease that they need support for. This is allowing for that expansion of Medicaid to help support them being able to get the care that they need. And so we expanded it from 21 years old to 26, which is in parity with everything else. We're in line with other things. Parents are keeping kids on their insurance longer to their 26. And we raise the age, to make sure that we're keeping in line with, 26-year-olds, kids are on their insurance in college, they're 26 to their parents' insurance. So this just made sense to expand that dollar amount to make sure that they could get those supports as well. The other
Let me go back to the healthcare workers. Now, those people work for the state.
They're paid through Medicaid. They don't necessarily work through the state. They may work for private agencies or nonprofit agencies that support nursing care, but it is through Medicaid though, that the way that they're paid.
Okay. And those funds come from the federal government to the state, and then they are paid from those funds.
That is correct. They're passed through to the state, and the state
will clarify that.
Okay. And the state will actually determine how those funds are allocated to those different agencies, but it is through Medicaid.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yes. So another area that I think we have focused on for a significant amount of time is our Healthy Moms, Healthy Baby programs. That's an area where we have provided support in the last several years. As you know, that African American women unfortunately don't necessarily make their date all the time, that they struggle with pregnancy. And also we find that not just in African American community, but community colors as a whole. And so one of the things that we identify is that there's resources in a community. We have increased the amount of women who are making their dates and being able to have the support that they need in a community by 17% when it comes to just the healthcare needs of moms when they're pregnant, but beyond pregnancy. And so we have seen a significant increase of women who are feeling supported and are supported. And so one of the things that through this budget process was necessary was being able to group all of the prenatal programs and postnatal programs all in one bucket. One of the things that I identified through this budget process was that there's so many silos of agencies that are providing these supports for moms and babies that it needed to be grouped into one bucket within the state budget so that we can see all the dollars that are coming in, the dollars that are going out, and how those dollars are directly impacting the moms and babies that we're trying to service across Michigan. When you think about rural areas, there's not a lot of OBGYNs who are in those areas. And so even with those moms who are conceiving children in the rural areas of our state, there needed to be more connectivity to being able to provide more support services that are locally available to them when it comes to pregnancy. So we did provide some dollars within that budget that the governor recommended, but we also made sure that there was more of an oversight for how those dollars are allocated throughout the state budget.
Good. And that really, of late, has been a real big push to provide care for particularly women of color, because I was at an event that talked about that a month or two ago, and talked about the aftercare, the number of women who are dying after they give birth, and many of those are women of color, and had nothing to do with the educational level they had, because there was a young lady who was a doctor, there was another one as an artist, but it had more to do with the institutions not taking them seriously when they complained of issues, or not looking at the issues that they had and giving them the proper care. And so that, I think, is really something that needs to be looked at a lot more. They have been talking about wifery locations, and trying to find some add midwifery to the mix to help some of those women, because unfortunately in some of our hospitals they're not paying attention to the concerns of women of color, and those women are dying at an alarming rate.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have provided dollars for not only centering pregnancy facilities, but also making sure that we are providing doula support within this budget, that there is a reimbursement mechanism for doulas to also help those moms through pregnancy, and also perinatal quality collaborative or agencies as well, making sure that there is effort to improve the outcomes for mothers and babies as well. So those are some of the things, but there's just so much money that we spend on this issue. But we still have a long way to go to, meet those expectations. And it's so sad that it doesn't matter what class you come from, or what economic background, or what have you. When there's biases within the hospital agencies, that's something that needs to be addressed, to be able to support moms throughout their pregnancy, no matter what, or any type of healthcare need.
Exactly. And listen to them when they say that something isn't quite right. Instead of just shoving them aside and dismissing that concern, they need to be listened to a lot more. And we need to help train those mothers, in many cases, to be advocates for themselves, and to not let people dismiss their concerns. And I think that would be a big help also.
Absolutely. And I do agree wholeheartedly. Speaking of which, we have our hospital agencies here in the state of Michigan. Most of our hospitals are nonprofit, which are operated through the Michigan Health Association, or excuse me, Michigan MHA, Michigan Health Association. They're all a part of that affiliate. But one of the things that we've tried to do through this budget process as well is that there are programs at the federal level in which we can get reimbursed as a state for. So when you look at moms and babies, hospital outpatient services, inpatient psychiatric services, professional services. These are all services that at the federal level that we can do a 3-to-4 match rate. I think it's 3-to-1 match rate. Don't call me on that. But so we did put money in the budget for making sure that those particular areas can be reimbursed through the Medicaid program. And so that draws down dollars from the federal government to help support those areas. One of the things I like too that, I noticed through the budget process is that there's a lot of opportunities at the federal level for us to apply for grants to help with access to care. And so this is one of those areas where the hospitals saw the need to be supported. And so we did put like $43.9 million into them being able to draw down federal dollars for those specific programs I mentioned.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Wonderful. What else is in the budget?
So we did, there are some one-time programs there are some programs that I really feel that are really important. When you think about Focus Hope, who provides nutritional resources or foods to our communities, or Forgotten Harvest or Gleaners. Those are all organizations who obviously get food from our farmers here in Michigan, and also through retailers and other agencies to be able to support the communities with food resources. So one of the things that we found was that our neighboring states like Ohio and Indiana and Wisconsin, for example, they are all funding these programs at $20 million a year. And the state of Michigan was funding our food bank programs at $2 million per year from the state level. So when you do the comparison, 20 million versus 2 million, that's a significant difference. And so with the fact that so many of our, back in February, March, a lot of people lost the $95 additional on their SNAP benefits. And so we thought it was necessary to make sure that there was a way to allocate dollars to help support food resources to help offset those dollars that they may not be receiving through SNAP benefits. So we put in $10 million for the food bank program.
Oh, good. That's going to be very, very helpful, because it's unfortunate, but so many people are still without food.
Mhm.
And I know in previous years, the school system has been able to provide meals for young people, because now that school is almost over, the young people who were getting breakfast and lunch at school won't be in school to get that. And that is a concern. Where are those young people going to get that nourishment, and how are they going to get it?
Well, I will tell you, I have to commend my counterpart in the Senate on the budget. Senator Camilleri has prioritized making sure that for the next school year that there is free lunch for everyone, every child, whether it be breakfast or lunch options, so that parents don't have to worry about that. But to your point, we have to make sure that those resources are available over the summertime for summer camps, or ways that those kids can also get those nutritional meals. We don't want kids out in the community without a source of nutritional value or food in their homes. So I think that the Food Bank Council mass program will help that. And also through the ag budget, we do have a double up food bucks. So parents that have EBT cards or have that support as well during the summer can go to your farmers markets and use double up food bucks to get those nutritional fresh vegetables and different items from the food market as well. So those are all ways that through the budget process, we have prioritized communities and making sure that resources are available to them.
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay.
Yeah. We've put money in for through this budget for first responders, mental health, safety grant programs. These are services to support them through post-traumatic stress syndrome. When you have a job of first responders, there's so many things that you see throughout the day, whether it, you might be pulling a child out of a building, or
Can't imagine.
Yes, absolutely. And so I wanted to make sure that through the budget process that they're supported, making sure that they are able to access mental health resources. One thing you will find with first responders is that it's very taboo or just culturally unacceptable in some respects in prior years for them to go and receive like EAP services or mental health services. It looks like, it used to be that if they were accessing these type of mental support services, that, that might be a flag for, their boss or whomever. So I think it's important that we acknowledge that mental health services are needed regardless of the industry, or people need that mental health support, especially in areas where you are a first responder or you're dealing with issues on the job that may impact you mentally and emotionally to be able to continue your job. So to be able to have someone to talk to is important.
Absolutely. And I think we still have not gotten to the place where we treat mental health issues the way we treat physical health issues. And those mental health issues can be just as important and more so in some cases. than some of the physical health issues. 'Cause we can see the physical health issues. We can see when somebody fell out and broke an arm, broke a leg, cut themselves, but you can't see the mental health issues. And those are the ones I firmly believe that we've got to work on really, really hard, not just for the adults, but for our children, because that is causing so much havoc and wreaking havoc. I think in the school system and many of these shootings and all of these other things that are going on are a result of mental health issues. And I think they've accumulated since COVID because people have not had a chance to have those kinds of outlets. And I think we're going to suffer for this for a few more years until we can get this mental health piece under control and make people believe and understand that it's okay if you say, I'm not feeling something's wrong here. I need to talk to someone. Have a place for them to talk. That's the issue. Someplace they can go to feel comfortable talking to people that can help them work through that mental health issue the same way as they would go to a therapist to work through that arm or that leg that they need rehab. So that's, I think, a huge issue for us.
Oh yes, absolutely. And we have to acknowledge it and just, deal with it on its face, not try to, mask it. And so I think we're doing that in this budget process, is making sure that we are acknowledging that, the job of first responders is difficult, and making sure that they have the support that they need to continue to be able to stay in the profession.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so the other area that I'm really excited about is that we put in $10 million to help support the Tri-County area, so Macomb, Oakland, and Wayne County, to pay off unpaid medical debt. This is something that is really impacting a lot of people across our state. Oh, you're saying something, and I can't hear you.
That's okay. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. This is an area that is impacting so many people across our state. I think overall the total debt for unpaid medical debt for Michigan is around $80 million or 80. What is it? 80 million? $80 million. Yes. So this would just help to support. Well, actually, it'll help to support several counties, and it's a match grant, so they can provide a portion of those dollars, and be able to provide, the state will provide a portion to help support the debt of many people in our area. And so I thought this was something that's very meaningful. A lot of people, can't have more month than money. And typically healthcare expenses are those areas where they need that support, just to be able to continue to get their medications or get those evaluations and be able to see a doctor. And so that's an area that truly, I think, we'll see some expansion in the future, hopefully. But for right now, this was a great starting point to be able to help support pay off medical debts for some of our folks who need that support in the community. All right. So one of the other big areas I think that's important, that we've talked about a little bit, obviously through the county, we've identified that, juveniles are, obviously staying in the juvenile detention facilities for too long. However, there is a national push to start doing more community corrections, making sure that kids who can be in the community and get that support to get back on the right path don't have to go to a residential treatment center. And so that's one of the things that we've been trying to do, is make sure that we are supporting those needs within the community. But through the statute, the state statute, which is MCL 330.1207C, we had to match the dollar amounts that we are putting within our budget. So we had to increase those dollars to the juvenile facility, juvenile diversion from 50% to 75%. And that was something that was regardless that had to happen within our budget. But we did provide $5 million to expand the jail diversion program. Yes. And also that's in partnership with local law enforcement. So that's an area where I think, in the future, we will have additional hearings because I think it's very important that we identify ways to reconcile the issue of past operations and make those more long term and make them beneficial to making sure we're keeping kids out of the system as much as possible. So we will,
Absolutely.
yes.
That is so important. So important. And how are you working with with DWIN?
Yeah, so Detroit Wayne Integration, I know that they are doing a lot of work in the community currently. One of the biggest things that they recognize is that we do need bed space for diversion from the jail. We have a lot of people who have mental health issues. They should not be locked up in the jail. And so uh, bed space is at a minimum right now. And so one of the things that they have recognized is that there is a need for additional bed space for those individuals who need that support. If it whether it's a crisis stabilization unit where they can go for a few days or several days to get that support. And so that's one of the things that I know we will continue to be working on to make sure that that's a part of a larger conversation on budgetary ask. I know that that's something that they are looking at $176 million to help support that. And we also have other, state, areas where there is a need for this type of support as well. So I am working with Eric Doe and his team. And I know that this is a priority for them. And so we will continue to work through the process. Now, it wasn't a part of the initial ask in a budget, but I know that we'll be working to support more behavioral space or behavioral supports and residential supports in a community.
Yeah, that is so important, and I think, as I said, I think we are getting a taste of how important it is when we see these things happening that probably haven't happened as much in the past, but it just appears that they're just every day there's something strange that happens. Um, that I think a mental health professional could have probably helped those people if they had sought the help. People don't seek the help. Some of them don't even know they need the help, and there's got to be some ways for us to help to intervene in those cases where people need that help, so they don't hurt themselves and don't hurt others. Just like the situation last week where the man uh, killed his ex-girlfriend and shot the boyfriend. I'm sure he had some mental health issues because he got up and took the kids to school that morning and then went and killed their mother. I mean, it's just there's got to be some mental health problem.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we didn't get here by, mental health facilities, unfortunately, were not prioritized under a couple administrations ago. And so
Yeah,
those facilities,
Engler is what started this
yeah,
mess when he closed all the mental health facilities. Governor Engler, I lay it all at his doorstep. When he
yeah.
closed mental health facilities, it impacted our communities as well as our jail system.
Absolutely, because the jails became your mental health facilities. Absolutely.
Yes.
So, and that brings us to, and unfortunately, because of that, they had a ripple effect. You have have less people working in the facilities.
Mhm.
You have less of a workforce that is going into psychiatry, psychology, social work, those areas where you need people to help support this specific area. And so we are at a pivotal point where we are trying to transition in some ways back to getting those support in the community and also through the long-term residential facilities for adults who need that mental health support. But it is a transition, and it is going to take all tides to lift. It is going to take all of us to carry that, I don't want to say burden, but that opportunity to make sure that we are on the right path moving forward. And so, yeah, and speaking of, carrying a path forward for, all of us, I think one of the biggest issues, obviously, Highland Park, we've heard about the issues with the water.
Yes.
And that has been an issue that has been going on for many years. No negotiations, no real communications between the water authority and the administrations of past or new. But regardless, I think that it's important, and it's important that as a state that we are, no matter what the circumstance, whether it be a human error or a human, mess up, regardless, we have to make sure that we as a state are helping to support all our municipalities, regardless of how one may feel about the circumstance. And I know that they have gone through a mediation process with Lewa and Highland Park. And I know that's still a negotiation point, but I put it in my budget.
Good. I'm glad.
So,
So we
regardless,
can't let people go without water. I mean,
you cannot.
It's a health issue. You
Yes.
can't let people do that. You can't let that happen. So whatever it takes, and what is it? I think they need it's $24 million, I believe.
Well, I think that's one part of the negotiation piece or what they're needing. I think there are some long-term conversations, but as far as that whole mediation process, but I did allocate in my specific budget around $20 million to help lift some of that burden. And whether it goes to infrastructure or paying off the debt or however it's structured to help support, I think it's the right thing to do. When you think about the fact that maybe 2 years ago, in Midland, the dam broke, and that was owned by a private company who decided not to provide the maintenance to that dam. And we allocated dollars from our state budget to help support making sure that the people of Midland were made whole. Mm-hmm. That's what we did regardless. And that's my point to why I decided that this was important to put in our budget. There was Flint with the inadequacy for water being changed over or changed back to the old system and they're being led in the water. We had to make this right by those individuals regardless. And that's my same argument for Highland Park. Regardless of who made the error, who did not, have the conversation, who did not negotiate with them, it is regardless. They have to have water. It is a human need. Your body's made of 75% water, and so regardless, those individuals need that support. Mm-hmm. And that's a community of 8,900 people. And if they had leaks in the water, then that's something that we have to work on, is making sure the infrastructure is set up properly. And I would be remiss to say, I don't think they're the only community who's had that. I used to represent Melvindale, and I know that was always a conversation at the council meetings about the water issues and how much they were paying. So infrastructure is old in our state, and we have to rebuild that infrastructure to make sure that these issues don't occur.
Absolutely. And they're citizens of the state. They're still paying taxes and live in this state. And the responsibility is to the citizens, not necessarily the governmental entity. It's to the people who live there. And that's what I'm just pleased that you were able to put those dollars in, and hopefully they will get past all of the hoops people are going to have to jump through to get them there to where they need to be. But I pray that we'll be able to do that, because the people deserve that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I know that that's a lot of burden on those homeowners who live there to put that on their tax rolls.
Yes.
That's a significant
older community also. And when you consider that is really one of our older communities in terms of numbers, the age of the people there, you just can't put that on their water bill and say, if you don't pay it, we're going to shut it off. That's just not acceptable. Absolutely. Not acceptable.
Absolutely. Water is a human right, and we have to make sure people have it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, but we've done a lot of good stuff in this budget. Obviously we have the opioid settlement dollars. That's a $23 million appropriation to HHS every year. We have settlements around $724 million over the course of several years. And so we allocated some of those dollars to local agencies who are supplying substance abuse treatment supports and want to build out in Wayne County. And so that's helpful to make sure that people have that substance abuse support in the community as well.
Yes.
So there's a lot. This budget, I always tell people this budget is nonpartisan. It doesn't have a Republican or Democratic letter on it. This is a people's budget, and so this impacts people from birth to death.
All right.
And regardless if you need emergency assistance for a funeral, or your car broke down and you need emergency funds for that, or if you're a parent who's trying to become independent, or you're working together with your husband or your partner to have a better quality of life for your children and you, we help with this. We help with those areas in this budget. So this budget is the people's budget, and that's why I enjoy working in this capacity on the HHS budget.
Wonderful. And obviously you're doing a fantastic job. We appreciate you so much. So the people in the state don't know how hard you work on their behalf as it relates to these issues. So thank you so much, Senator Santana. We appreciate you. We'll have you back after we see what happens with the budget. You can tell us what's really going to go on. This is what we propose. We'll see what happens. So we'll have you back after that as we go forward. But thank you so much for all you continue to do for the state and for your district. We appreciate it. We know how dedicated you are. And especially when you've got 3 children, along with all the other things you do, that is no small task. So thank you for all you do. We appreciate you. We'll have you back after we see what really gets into the budget and what gets approved. Everyone, see you next Monday at 4:00 for the Community Bell Show. We are always happy to have you. Thank you so much. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Community Bell with your host, former Wayne County Commissioner, Edna Bell. This broadcast was brought to you by WVTC Radio Detroit. You can find us on Facebook, YouTube, our website, www.wvtcradio.com, or download our WVTC app from the Play Store for Android users and the App Store for iPhone users. If you've enjoyed this broadcast, tell a friend to tune in. We'll see you next Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern to the Community Bell Show, right here on WVTC Radio Detroit.
Detroit, get ready for an uplifting evening of gospel music with 2 of the country's finest choirs. The Detroit chapter of the Gospel Music Workshop of America presents their annual fellowship musical featuring special guests, the Gospel Music According to Chicago Recording Choir. That's Friday, May 26, 2023 at 7 p.m. at the Greater New Mount Moriah Baptist Church, 586 Owens in the city of Detroit. Don't miss this unforgettable night of gospel music. Tickets are on sale now. General admission $10, reserved seating $20. For more information, please call 313-657-3910. That's 313-657-3910, or visit www.gmwadetroit.org. See you there.
You're listening to WVTC Gospel Radio Detroit, and we're flowing in the Spirit.